Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to the Piping Centre. My name's Cowal MacLeod and I'm the Industry Development Manager for EventScotland. I think I've seen a few of you before. And just to say, we're all, we're amongst friends here, we're all pretty relaxed. There is a live stream going out and there's a few people, more friends watching. So the purpose of today is just as an industry development workshop, training development opportunity for event organisers. That is part of our commitment to the National Event Strategy, Scotland the Perfect Stage. So we run a lot of workshops throughout the year. We've done event volunteering, we did GDPR, we do quite a lot around event resilience. But today's session was just on a bit of feedback from, or based around feedback from you guys, just wanting a bit more information around live streaming. Not something that I'm an expert on in it by any means, hence we've got our friends from Inner Ear to support us in this. It is introductory level, so there's lots of experience in the room. Just share your experience, that's what's really important about these sessions as well. So don't hesitate to ask questions, but actually we'll probably go through the presentation first of all, which will take about 45 minutes, and then we'll do a wee Q&A whilst we set up for the panel. And then when we get to the panel, we've got some great people who've got a good bit of experience about live streaming. So I think we are now on air, and I'll introduce Benny and Katie from Inner Ear, who will talk you through the presentation. Thanks very much, guys.
Hi there, my name's Katie, and this is my colleague Benny.
Hiya.
Hello. So we've been working at Inner Ear collectively for about 9-10 years. Mm-hmm. We've got a sort of broad range of experience to do with live stream. We actually come from like a content creation background in communications, which actually fits really well into live streaming and what it can do in your overall marketing strategy. So today, as Torkel said, it's just an introductory workshop, and it's really for you to go away and feel empowered to, do a bit of live streaming yourself, whether that is a sort of DIY effort, if that's something that's appropriate for your organisation, or when you're having a conversation with a streaming company, so that you're a wee bit more clued up on the sort of specs that you need and quoting as well. So I'll just kind of briefly go through what we're going to talk about. So first of all, we'll just do a bit about our work, so how we started, which was a good while ago. We were wee bit babies, I think, at that point probably. And we're going to talk about our platforms that we use as well, work that we've undertaken on live streaming for clients, and also work that we admire as well from other organisations that are maybe taking on live streaming in-house in a really creative way. We'll also be talking about when live streaming works, so the sort of perfect opportunity, and then also when it doesn't as well, and if it's not going to work where you are, perhaps if you're in a remote location, how you can overcome that and still give your audience a really authentic live event experience. We'll also talk about our professional workflow as well. Now, that'll be like top level, because I know not everyone's going to be like overly interested in the technical aspect of live streaming. So it's just an overview of basically the kit that's behind you, and how everything works together to broadcast out on a multi-camera setup. We'll also be talking about the types of platforms that you can broadcast on, and really what are the features and benefits of each, what ones you maybe want to avoid if you're looking for a more high-spec broadcast, and what are suitable if you've got your iPhone and you're looking for a certain type of engagement. We'll talk about the do's and don'ts, sort of self-explanatory, rights and licensing as well, and also touch on single camera setup versus having like a multi-camera setup like this. Different events have different requirements, and sometimes you'd be surprised at sort of events that have really big budgets that choose to do things in a really alternative way because it suits the environment and what's happening in the room. We'll also talk about programme making, which is a form of live streaming where you can incorporate additional content. We do that quite often with a range of cultural events that we take on, and it really works to make your live stream almost like an experience for the viewer with no gaps in content. And we'll also talk about what you can learn from live stream data and statistics, which is my favourite thing ever because I'm very boring. But what you can pull from your live stream data can really inform your communication strategy for the whole year. It can give you an insight into where your audience are all over the world, marketing opportunities, advertising opportunities as well, to reach out to people, you know, all over the world that you would never have anticipated had you not had this information. And then we'll also talk about monetising your stream as well, because obviously in an ideal world it would be amazing to get a bit of revenue back from that. And there are different ways that you can do that as well that we'll touch on too.
Indeed. We're going to cram that all in to 45 minutes, well, 42 minutes
42.
now. Yeah, we'll do it. We will do it.
We will.
Yeah, so as Katie said, we are Inner Ear, a content creation company. We've worked in digital media for many, many years now. So the company was founded in the year 2000, which is ancient history now. And the main sort of drive for Inner Ear as a digital media company at the time, as a production company, was to run our internet radio station, which is Radio Magnetic. It's still running today, which I believe makes it the, if not one of the longest running UK internet radio stations in Britain. And so that was launched in March 2001. And essentially for the first 5 years of Inner Ear's life, it was doing the early kind of form of live streaming. Before there was really bandwidth and internet capabilities to be streaming video, we were streaming sound and live radio shows and recorded kind of early versions of podcasts that you had to tune into live. And from that we kind of, you know, learnt a lot about program making and demand and how to share stuff online and the best ways it's received and the best ways to construct these kind of things. And as the internet developed, we developed, and video became more popular. And so we kind of morphed, as we still are. We always morph, and digital media morphs and keeps developing all the time. So we just continually adapt. And yeah, from the radio, we got into live streaming video.
Yep. So at the moment, Inner Ear specialise in content creation and effective communication to audiences. So we specialise in live streaming, obviously, live programme making and documentary production. So we work with clients to understand how best to engage with their audiences. So identify where their audience are, what they're most interested in terms of like the format that we can deliver to them, and make sure that we're always sensitive to that. We also, for bespoke training and consultancy, well, it's the company owner Dougal, who's not here with us today. He's got decades of experience with live streaming, and he operates on a consultancy as well. For the likes of, if you are looking to have a DIY or if you're looking to bring it in-house as well, you know, that's Dougal's experience is such that he just wants everybody to be able to live stream, so it's not a sort of us and them mentality. We would love for everybody to be able to do it themselves.
Two slides in.
There we go. No.
Yeah, so we've got a number of creative projects, as I talked about. We have Radio Magnetic, which is now 18 years old and still running. You'll probably see it like featured on posters and stuff in Glasgow. We still do like a lot of streaming and podcasting of events. Trad TV is our most recent baby as such, and it was kind of born out of all of Inner Ear's trad music work in Scotland. So we've done streaming from this very room, from the National Piping Centre as part of Piping Live and various other events, and also, you know, a number of kind of key events that go on in the trad music calendar, namely the World Pipe Band Championships from Glasgow Green. We streamed the sort of first day of that, working alongside the BBC very closely. And Glenfiddich Piping Championship we've now done for 6 or 7 years, and grown and developed that programme right from just a very basic stream right up to where we're at today with it, which is like essentially like a televised kind of broadcast where we have Fergus Muirhead, who I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with, and this building is very familiar with. He helps us out presenting the competition, but also coming out and doing live interviews and stuff like that with us. And yeah, various other things. We've just done our second year of the Cowal Highland Games, which incorporates the World Highland Dancing Championships, which is, all these things have got like a great niche reach worldwide, which we kind of identified through doing paid work, hired work, under the guise of Inner Ear, and decided to open this Trad TV brand, actually on the way to Stornoway one time, off the cuff. Me and Dougal were in the back of the sound man, who you see up at the back there, his van, building a website and creating a brand, because we thought off the back of doing a workshop up there, kind of similar to today, just try to teach people in remote locations about how to live stream. There was also the Donald MacLeod Memorial Piping Competition going on there, which had never been broadcast, and there was very little actually online about it, but it's a very central competition in the piping world, worldwide. We thought, we're taking all our kit up there anyway, we're teaching people how to live stream, let's just give it a go and live stream this. No one was paying us to do it, so we thought, well, let's create our own brand to do it under. Trad TV made sense in the van. We built the website there and then the next day we streamed live and had viewers from Hong Kong and Germany and America, in their thousands, and were really well received in the room and globally. So it kind of shows you how, off the cuff and adaptive you can be with these things. And I guess it's all about kind of knowing what you're trying to do with it and the potential of your audience.
Yeah, and if there's a niche audience as well, which we'll sort of touch on later.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's Trad TV. Walking Heads is another great thing that is a bit less relevant to live streaming, mostly involved in podcasting, and it's an app that you can download, many of which the tours are in Glasgow. So we've got the Glasgow Music Tour, tour of derelict buildings that we worked on with Architecture and Design Scotland, and many more. So if you're interested in audio tours and podcasting and stuff like that, check out Walking Heads as well.
Okay, so we'll move on to some case studies of our work. Maybe some people in the room might be a bit familiar with a couple of them up there. First of all, I'll speak about the World Pipe Band Championships. Now, that was an opportunity that we saw where there was a real gap in the market for the heat section or the qualifying section of the Pipe Band Championships. So that's held every August at Glasgow Green. The BBC broadcast on the Saturday, but on the Friday they set up their full kit and it's basically like a rehearsal that they do, but they'll vision mix it, so they'll take all the feeds from the camera and have somebody there cutting it all, and it'll all be live broadcast on the screen as well. And it seemed mad that there was a qualifying round the day before where there were loads more participants from all over the world, and none of that content was getting out to the friends, families, people with a general interest in piping, and that of course is global. So we worked with Glasgow Life to make that stream happen. Now that's a sort of a live programme example, because the week before there's a Piping Live festival. So that's an amazing opportunity to grab content that's from, industry leaders, bands from all over the place. This year we had the Omani Pipe Band. You're never going to get people that have, such a niche interest and that are so engaged in the one place. So in order to make that programme work on the Friday, we at Inner Ear went out. I do a camera operation, Amanda does sound, and then we work with Fergus as the presenter as well, and we just run about Glasgow capturing as much content as we can for this stream. Then at the end we edit them together to make like 2-3 minute videos that will run on the Friday. We'll take the feeds from the BBC, so we've got the live, which is quite unusual for us. We take the feeds from the BBC, and then any time there's any gaps in the competition, we've got loads of content to populate it as well. So it works really well for audiences that are global. They are getting a real flavour of the week that's been running up to it, the excitement, the anticipation. When you look at the sort of audience participation with the likes of the engagement in the chat and the stream as well. Everybody is really pleased to be able to talk about something that is, you know, pretty niche. They have parties where they'll broadcast the stream as well. It's quite crazy when we're in like a hut in the middle of Glasgow Green just trying to like get it all done, thinking that there's loads of places all over the world that are just absolutely loving what you're doing. So there's huge potential if it's something niche like piping that is sort of really enjoyed in far-flung places.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I just realised when you mentioned Amanda there, we probably should have introduced the whole setup a bit more fully.
Yeah.
So if you look around the room, obviously a lot of the time we'll be on that side of the thing. This is kind of rare for us to come in front of an audience and talk about it. But yeah, we've got Amanda on the camera there. We don't need a round of applause, just a wee wave. We've got Kurt on sound up the back, and we've got Finlay monitoring the live stream and making sure everything is live and on the internet, and making sure there's no abusive comments about our terrible presentation. But yeah, so this kind of small team is quite often all that's needed to produce quite a fairly big scale broadcast. Depending where you are and when you are and what's going on, really. I mean, there's a lot of static camera stuff, and we're not moving around too much today, and you know, as long as we're mic'd up and everything, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, another example is Cowal Highland Gathering. We're now in our second year, or just did our second broadcast of the Cowal Highland Gathering in August just past. A really not super remote location, but there's not any internet there to begin with, put it that way. So we need to bring our own internet out there, which is quite a technical thing that I won't go too in depth into, but essentially we have a giant mast and a satellite which brings in a lot of different 4G, 3G signals, bonds them, and then we can use a newly created internet to broadcast through. So this year was the second year, and we did 2 concurrent streams, so there's 2 stages at once going on with this World Championship of Highland Dancing. There's dance groups that come from all over the world to compete. So again, similar with the other kind of niche trad music things that we've talked about, there's a really niche but global audience. So all over the world, people are traveling there and they've got their friends and their family, and people are interested in competing in the future that can't be there. So streaming to these people and having these 2 concurrent streams, make sure we've got full coverage. It does take a bigger team than we've got today, because there's a lot of cameras and there's a lot of running cables and trying to make everything work, and a lot of monitoring because there's 2 streams going on at once. But this year we actually moved, after kind of proving that there was a real demand for it in the first year, we moved into like a pay-per-view model this year at the request of the client, but we were quite confident about it because there was such a great demand and response and engagement last year when we kind of did it for the first time with quite little promotion. So yeah, this year we kind of had like a paywall in front of the live stream broadcast. People could just pay to access for the 2 days of the event. So they get access to the whole weekend for, I can't remember actually how much it was. Obviously there's the conversion with dollars and all that, but it was around like £3 or £4 to access for the full weekend, and that proved really successful. And it was really reassuring for the client because they've kind of got a lot of money coming in up front and a kind of payback from broadcasting. But also in terms of engagement, you just see all the comments on the stream and how much everyone's loving it, and being able to see like their little sister or their cousin or whatever dancing, you know, so good feeling. And yeah, quite a remote and niche thing to be covering. Glenfiddich, talked about that a wee bit. Sure some of you are familiar with it. It's kind of like the high end of the solo piping in the world. So 10 of the finest pipers each year come to Blair Castle to compete. Actually, if you're walking up the stairs there, you see all the photographs of the competitors over the years. So I think, right in the saying, it's the last 7 years we've covered that. This year, more in depth than ever. Every year we kind of develop it and use our audience to their feedback that comes on the chat, and by using hashtags on Twitter and stuff like that, we get the feedback from the audience and we kind of develop from there.
Yeah, there was like a specific thing with that stream that the first time we did it, it just cut at the end, and one of the pieces of feedback that came back on the chat was like, what just happened? Like, is that it done? Is there no sort of roundup? So that made us think about, a programme format, you know, is it as cut and dry as just having the stream running, or do this audience want more? And clearly they did, and the appetite for the content that we generate there, live, all the interviews, is just grown and grown, so it's a really interactive thing for the people that are watching as well.
That's right, and it's great having Fergus on our side as well.
Totally, yeah, he knows his stuff, yeah.
And then he'll run out with one of the competitors or one of the judges, and we'll just do a live video link. So, you know, in terms of like live streaming a competition, there's often quite a lot of downtime throughout the day. You want to keep your viewers hooked and give them also like a kind of reward for staying tuned. So with that, we kind of use exclusive content, like with Fergus jumping out, and we can get an interview that people even that are in the building aren't seeing. So that's great. But also we found with Glenfiddich, I think the most recent stat is something like 10% of the audience in the castle for the competition now are coming as a result of watching the live stream over these years. So we've, from it being quite a like alien, risky thing for us to do, like we take the internet there, stream from this old castle, very old, respected competition all over the world, build up an audience, build up a demand, and then now we're such an integral part of it, and we're the reason that people, you know, that stream is the reason people are able to see it each year. They've kind of got that burning desire now, like, I'm going to go to Scotland, I want to be in that castle and watch it. So I think a lot of the time people argue that, you know, if you're a live streaming event, then why are people going to turn up? Because they can just sit on their laptop or at home and watch it. But that's a good example of people travelling from literally all over the world to see something because they've kind of watched it on the stream.
Yeah. And then the Scottish Album of the Year award, again, that's like quite different from, you know, the sort of trad music stuff that we've touched on previously. That's obviously of global significance. We have people tuning in all over the world there, and it's a different audience to the trad music. It's maybe people that generally aren't as engaged. So the point in that stream is reach. We want it to get to as many people as possible. Things you need to consider there are, what are the best platforms to use for that? Facebook Live, but I'll touch on that a wee bit later when we're talking about, you know, what the best thing is to use. And then in terms of the setup as well, all these other places are quite challenging. You know, remote locations, sometimes it's quite challenging just to get something that is, you know, a fairly good broadcast quality to get out. It might be just a single camera. You couldn't get away with that at the Scottish Album of the Year Awards. It needs to be as if you are watching the Brits. We need to have high spec kit in, and everybody needs to be on their game. It's all going out in vision mixed as live. So we use things to convey the sort of excitement of the event, and that's through things like camera angles, going like really tight in with a handheld camera on a performer, having things like dollies and jibs that are, you know, a bit more expensive, but just give an idea of, you know, the room and the atmosphere you're trying to convey with that. That it's a big deal, you know, Scotland's a big deal, and, you know, having one camera pointing at the plinth for that would never cut it. In terms of what we get, an average of like 20 minutes viewed of the SAY Awards, and that's a combination of it being streamed on like 2 different platforms, which is really, for a 2.5 hour programme, that's a quite incredible stat. You know, people are very engaged in this, and it's 30 different countries that we have viewers from as well.
We find that even more so with the niche stuff as well. I should have mentioned that, like something like the Glenfiddich Piping Championship, you're looking at like 35 minutes on average. People are tuned in watching. You know, it's not. It's and like you know, if you put that even in a television sense, it's like how many people are staying on the same channel for 35 minutes. Never mind like the internet where there's all these options and tabs open and stuff. So it's good, and like we'll talk about a bit more about how you analyse these things and the stats later on. But it's really great to be able to drill down into that and see where the peaks in people are watching and how much they are like sort of dedicated to the streams.
So just touch on a couple of different streaming sort of examples that we thought were really cool, really outside the box. They're not all totally high end, but quite interesting for the kind of organisation or business that is doing them. You might have, you know, a sort of preconceived notion that anything that comes out of these places needs to be really high spec. That's not the case, and it's not always the nature for a live stream, and it can be sometimes quite dehumanising as well. It's really live streams are amazing to personalise a brand, and that it comes into its own with things like the National Gallery. So the National Gallery do a live broadcast if they want to do like a preview of an exhibition. Again, that's on Facebook Live, so it's like, you know, anybody that likes them can see that they've started that broadcast, and it'll appear in feeds as well. It's very accessible, and that was the point that they wanted to make. They wanted to make art more accessible. Of course, boosting ticket sales would be like a pleasant consequence of doing the stream as well. But it was more about getting this out to the masses, getting people engaged in what's happening, and giving people that can't be at the exhibitions as well a sneak preview. So I've got a video of it, but I might just explain it just so that we keep to time. So it's they just use like an iPhone on a gimbal, and then they make up a presenter, and she'll go round. They do a wee rehearsal, and she goes round and the gallery, and that's it. She just talks about the paintings. They do nice close-ups of the artwork. It's so effective. I think it was something like it was 20,000 people watched their most popular Facebook Live, and 5,000 of them watched the whole 15 minutes. So that's a really good number in terms of live streaming, especially when it's on Facebook Live, where people will usually just see that content and scroll past because it's not anything that you've searched for specifically, it's just appeared on your timeline.
Yeah, and there's a couple other really good and very different examples here. I don't know, I think a lot of people might have heard of the National Theatre Live, NT Live broadcasts, or like not similarly, they're pretty high end in terms of like what they're achieving there in the terms of the broadcast, but you know, they allow access to people with that aren't anywhere near the actual shows themselves, but also to sold out shows that people couldn't normally access. You can watch online, and that's like a pay-per-view model as well, like I said with the Cowal Highland Games. Similarly, streaming just from one venue, the Berliner Philharmoniker Digital Concert Hall concept, you in that sense, you're paying for like a subscription rather than a one-off. So you pay for like, I think it's a month at a time, and you can access all the concerts that are going on in this sort of world famous concert hall. And they're both really like successful, popular models that are very easy to find online if you give them a quick search. Like Katie says, we won't go too in depth or
yeah. I mean, the Tough Mudder's a really good one. I'll quickly touch on sporting wise, because it's, you know, sort of like extreme obstacle course. People do kind of want to see what's happening there. It's a really crazy event, and they do that in-house with the help of a platform called Livestream. They've sort of given them advice on how best to set up with it. So their stream's been really successful. They use tons of different camera angles. They're always cutting to live interviews before the actual event. They'll go out to everybody that's participating and try and like pull out some pretty interesting stories so that they know certain points in the course that they want to grab somebody. So they've had like last year 14.5 million hits on their live stream, and then if you consider that out of like 70,000 hits on a live stream, 20,000 of them usually convert to a website visit. So it's incredible. Like if you've got your stream and if you've sort of strapped it correctly so that you've got a direction traffic to your website, they're doing it really, really well.
Good stats.
They are.
I've got an incredible memory for stats. I don't have any stats at all. You just have to
okay.
word for it. But yeah, why stream live? Lots of reasons to stream live. Yep. I'd say one of the main ones is definitely accessibility, which comes in different forms. Like you said before, if people can't be there, they're in a different country, or there's, it's a sold out show, there's high demand, everybody wants to see it live, they don't want to see it after the case, then that's kind of top priority. But other sort of interpretations of accessibility would be, obviously all venues should be accessible for people in wheelchairs and stuff like that, but they're not always going to be. So streaming is a great way of sort of tackling that and allowing people to see the thing as it's happening.
Yeah, it works really well when there's like a reveal or there's like some sort of jeopardy. So any competitions that you've got going on, that's the ideal thing. Any award ceremonies as well. It works really well when there's a build up and you can actually see usually the audience engagement or the viewer count really rise until it gets to that crescendo where the reveal is, and then hopefully they stay after that as well.
I mean, it kind of ties in with like the modern age, you know, what everyone's doing on the internet, they're all in the moment. We talked about hashtags very briefly earlier, but you really see that ties into live streaming very relevantly when you're using a hashtag for something like the Say Award, when, you know, it just picks up more and more throughout the night, and crescendos when the winner's announced and everyone's using the hashtag celebrating or otherwise, you know.
And it gives a really good, I kind of touched on that earlier, it gives you a really good insight into your audience, and it can sometimes like surprise you the type of, or the time that they've engaged with the stream or what type of content they seem to enjoy the most, and you can use that, you can really capitalise on that and use it to inform any sort of future event that you're going to have, or your communication strategy as well.
And I guess before you do that slide,
sorry.
That's all right. It was just I was going to mention creating a shared experience as well, because live streaming is a really good way of doing that. Obviously, the people in the room are all having a shared experience, but when you're online, something like the platform we're using today, live stream, it's got a chat functionality, so people can all be talking to each other wherever they are in the world. Conversations start up, you tie that in with Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, and there's, you know, a lot of, there's that kind of shared community vibe around things, depending what, you know, it could be from a really small thing if you're doing some internal streaming at a very basic scale for people to talk about, you know, they can watch as part of a meeting or a presentation that's internal, or right up to like a big award ceremony or something like that where you can pass comment freely. So
why not? And you might think that's like a bit of a weird slide for a live streaming company to have up, but there's ways round. If it's going to be really challenging for your event to get online, there's ways around that. Or for instance, if you really want to capture something that's going on, like bands, like a panel discussion, but it's not the right time within your comm strategy to put that out yet, then we can, or like if you're going to have like a live stream business and doing it for you, then there's ways around that. So that example is for Expo North, so that's for Highlands and Islands Enterprise. So they have XN TV where they were showcasing, you know, musicians from across Scotland. We thought the best thing to do there, and we'll touch on the sort of techie kit that we used to a point after this, we captured the bands, had the sort of inputs, and then vision mixed it all, and then that was it. We had it at that point. So everything was, all the cuts were made, we filmed it all as if it was happening live. There was no, you know, cut action. It was one take and that was it. We did that because Expo North have a strategic plan for this content, and having it all broadcast in the one go didn't suit them. However, you can't really capture live broadcast, live music in any other way than that sort of pre-recorded format.
Also, another reason why you would use that strategy is, as I said before, you know, if you're streaming from remote locations, it can often be difficult to get the internet there. There's always a way. Where there's a means, there's always a way. But you don't always have the budget to bring your own internet. It's quite a costly thing, additional costs, and also sometimes timescale. You know, sometimes you're being reactive with your broadcast and you just want to get it captured.
Yep.
And then, like Katie says, you know, you can then employ a strategy of how best to like get it out to the world and still kind of treat it as a live thing. Nobody's privy to it until you're actually broadcasting it from somewhere with internet.
With the Celtic Media Festival, they didn't have the budget for internet that we could have brought if they really did want to do a live broadcast, but it was a reveal. They were doing their short list of nominations. So we recorded them sort of day before, which kind of gave them a bit of a relaxing as well, because, you know, nobody really wants to do a piece to camera live, especially when they're not presenter trained in the first place. They're, you know, from the organisation. And then we played that out as if it was live. So as far as the audience knew, that was all going out, you know, as a live stream.
It is definitely a good strategy because, as you know, as with right now, anything can happen when something's live, you know. So if you want that extra security and extra sort of quality of broadcast, it's also a good reason to pre-record.
And just a sort of overview of the kit we use, and it might start to, what we were speaking about before, might start to make a bit more sense, because I was conscious I was using words like vision mixer and streaming computer and stuff, and that doesn't really mean anything, you know, to you. So in terms of sound sources and cameras, that's pretty top line. You just think about what is the event that you want to broadcast. Is it somebody doing like a piece to camera? Is it capturing a live music event? Is it a sporting event? Is ambient sound important? Is the only thing that's important the person talking? And of course there's different sound sources you would use for that. You could use like something called a Zoom recorder, you might need a boom mic, you might need a lapel mic, you might take a feed from the in-house PA that have the band already mixed. And then with regards to cameras, again, that's about the feel that you want to have for your audience. Is it like a DIY behind the scenes effort, then an iPhone's totally fine. Like if it suits, you know, what you're trying to convey, an iPhone's totally fine. If you're going for a high spec sort of artsy broadcast, then you would maybe want to consult with somebody that is an expert in live streaming about the kind of camera we'd use. You can use a Cinecam for something like that, which gives a gorgeous, like, cinematic look to anything that you're broadcasting. And then if you're doing a sort of conference thing, or if it's a bit more like this, where, you know, the focus is on the content and what we are saying, it's not really on the sort of glitz and what's happening on the periphery, then the cameras that we've got just now are fine. They're just broadcast ready cameras. You don't need to faff about with the lenses or anything, they're just ready to go.
Yeah, and I mean, like you're saying, it's always dependent on what you're trying to achieve, what your goals are with the nature of the event, what kind of kit you're going to use. But this is sort of like our general approach. Like today, you will see all the things pretty much that we've got up here in the back, and you'll be shown in a bit more detail later on. But yeah, like the vision mixer, audio mixer kind of side of things is essentially creating like a live on-site TV studio, so you can edit, you can cut your video live as it's happening. Like right now, one of these vision mixers is being used at the back. We've got 3 cameras set up at any point. Your man Finlay sat at the back there can cut between any of these cameras, and similarly with your audio mixer, your headphones and stuff, it's just all monitoring and editing as you go, making sure everything's crisp and you're getting the angles you want and the sound right. And particularly like when the panel happens in a little while, there'll be different microphones, so you kind of need your audio mixer and a good sound man to drop in and out on the channels. And then moving from there, you go down to sort of recording and capturing. So you need a capture device to take it all in and process it. And 9 times out of 10, if not, Dougal would want me to say 10 times out of 10, we always record what we're live streaming. It's always good practice, you know, to have it in case there's any gaps in internet, which does happen, particularly on remote recordings, but also just in case there's anything else you want to do with it. You know, you've got it all there. Yep. And then you want to talk about streaming computer?
Yeah, so the streaming computer is basically just a computer that's big enough to handle what you've got. So if you've got, for instance, like 4 channels of vision, 7 channels of audio coming in, the capture device basically takes all that data and like sorts it out into something the computer can read, and then the computer just basically needs to be super powerful. So a laptop would not survive that at all. It needs to be a big boy that's like tens of thousands of pounds, not anything that would be able to be replicated in-house unless you had that kind of setup already. Broadband, we kind of touched on that earlier. We can bring broadband with us basically just by pulling it out of the air, which is bizarre, but that is how it works. Or we can just plug into the modem with an Ethernet cable. If you're live streaming, unless it's on a phone and unless there's a sort of minimal risk of an audience being highly dissatisfied with it, I would strongly recommend plugging into Ethernet, or at least do not use Wi-Fi, because if you are basically representing an organisation and there is facility for you to have internet and you're in like a building, if you use Wi-Fi and it cuts out, your audience are just going to be annoyed, and like all these negative comments on the stream don't do don't do much for your organisation, and you don't want it to appear unprofessional as well. And it's easy enough, that's one of the things that you need to check before you start streaming. What is the Wi-Fi like? Is what I'm doing going to be something that can be supported by the Wi-Fi? Majority of cases with live streaming, it's not.
So we love the piping centre.
Yeah.
You stream to your lunch times, you can just plug right in.
And then streaming server, that's basically we stream to live stream from there, whatever platform you're using, that will sort of disseminate that information and it appears to your online audience on whatever device that they're using.
Hopefully there's loads of them.
Yep. So I'll just give you a wee overview of the platforms that you can use and the sort of pros and cons of each. So for YouTube Live, you need to make a Google account in order to use that, which is obviously not ideal. However, your content is instantly discoverable. YouTube's basically owned by Google, so if you're looking for the content after the event's happened, it's really easy to find it. However, it can get blocked a lot in schools and organisations. It's just one of these websites that they don't like. So if you're doing a sort of educational broadcast, you need to be mindful that there might be walls up in the institutions that are maybe looking to join the stream. On YouTube Live as well, you can just start streaming immediately, or you can set up your event in advance and invite like a closed audience as well. So for Facebook Live, there's obviously like your reach is amazing and you've got a built-in audience. As soon as you start broadcasting on Facebook Live, anybody who you're friends with or has liked your page knows that. So that's a pretty amazing feature. However, it's the opposite of YouTube, and the video after it's been on and even if it's archived, it's impossible to find it. It doesn't rank in any sort of Google searches. It's not optimised to be found again. The nature of these videos it's almost to be very in the moment and then gone. You can't really find them again. Again, you can't monetise that platform really. There might be ways around it that you could maybe put a strap line if somebody was sponsoring the event, but it's a bit of a hassle to do that. It doesn't really it doesn't monetise, so you wonder if it's appropriate for business. In some cases it is maybe to humanise your brand, but not necessarily for if you're doing like a high spec sort of conference or anything, that wouldn't work. Vimeo Live is ad-free, streams at 1080p, which is like really high quality, so that's really good if you're doing a sort of high spec broadcast. And then even if you've recorded it in 4K, which is like ridiculously high quality, even if it can't broadcast in that quality, it saves the video as 4K as well. So that's the platform that you want to go. They sort of pride themselves on being high spec, a bit like live stream as well. YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, a bit more DIY, a bit more in the moment. Vimeo Live's a lot more cinematic, and the content that's on Vimeo reflects that as well. Livestream.com is what we use. That's got incredible audience insights. You need to pay for it, but the analytics side of it is second to none in terms of finding where your audience are, what they're engaging with. None of these other platforms offer that. So if you were considering going in-house and having your own setup for live stream, that's definitely worth a look. I would definitely recommend using that. And then you can also use simulcast as well, which is a way that you can stream to multiple platforms from livestream.com as well. So that's definitely worth a mention. Okay. And then Periscope's sort of that's Twitter really. So the pros of Periscope, it's sort of vertical video. It deletes itself after 24 hours unless you put a little save hashtag. Whenever I've engaged with it, it's not anything that I would use for a business or an organisation really. I think Facebook Live would be suitable for a sort of DIY effort. Periscope, not so much, I don't think.
Out of time.
No. Let's go.
Let's hurry along.
Okay. So Mevo is what we've got with us today. So these are different types of DIY kit that are fairly affordable that you can have in-house. Mevo's between £400 and £600, and that's an all-in-one streaming device. and it hooks up to your iPad or your iPhone. It streams in like 1080p quality, and it also does zoom in effects as well. So it gives the appearance of a multi-camera setup, even though it's, you know, just a really small, discrete device that's sitting there as well. So it's perfect for things like panel discussions. It's also really good for live music as well, where you're just doing cuts that are intuitive, thinking, okay, like this person's going to play, that person's going to play. It really works for that. The Zoom recorder is...
Zoom's a great bit of kit.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to use, even if you're not super familiar with like other bits of audio kit. As you see there, it's like all very obvious buttons, and super portable and diverse. Really good like field recorder, but also for interviews, and sort of like low scale streaming quality is, well, not low quality, but you know, like low scale in terms of what you're trying to achieve. It's brilliant handheld recorder that almost anybody could use, I would say. Also your gimbal, Detective John Gimbal, as we like to call him. He's great for the phone devices. You can just kind of stick them on there, and it's essentially like a portable tripod. So if you've got a lot of movement in your shots and you're using something like an iPhone, it'll kind of stabilize it and help achieve a better quality.
And the smartphone lenses, again, they can retail from like £8 to 150 quid, depending on, you know, the kind of look that you're wanting to get. But if you're wanting a sort of wider shot, sort of fisheye look to your event, then they're perfect for that as well. Okay, I'm kind of going to touch on the device streaming best practice in here. Do you want to cover that, Benny?
Sure.
With you?
So we've just got like a few quite simple do's up there. I mean, we've covered quite a lot of it already. In terms of like ensuring your bandwidth availability and kind of steering away from using Wi-Fi for the most part. What's a good overview of most of this is like recce and preparation is a really key part to live streaming. You've got to go to the venue or the place that you're trying to stream from, work out all these sort of factors, but also preparation in terms of really what you're trying to achieve with your stream, how high quality it's going to be, what kit and what kind of crew you need to get involved to achieve that. Because I mean, you know, when something's live and there's a lot of pressure on the moment, you kind of need all that workflow to happen beforehand so that you can nail it. It's very hard to do it off the cuff. So yeah, test runs, adjusting your sort of camera, lighting, any of that kit accordingly to what you're trying to do. Someone monitoring your live stream is really essential, like Finley's up the back doing that today, as well as cutting live, but monitoring to make sure it's still streaming, which is pretty essential, but also things like the chat that goes on. So if you're using something like live stream, people can comment live. It's good to kind of monitor that, and you can be quite responsive to people, which helps give like a more personal experience, but also like something that we've experienced, that competitions that go on for a whole day, quite often they'll overrun, the timings will adjust, and you can kind of use your little chat stream to like let them know, like stay tuned, 5 minutes, this thing will be happening, or we've overrun, whatever. And also great for engaging with your viewers. You can talk directly and they can talk to each other. What we found with like these global streams is you've got people from Texas and Germany and all that, you like all start talking about how amazing what you're watching is, so it's a great feeling.
Yeah, so I'll just sort of go over these as and when. So just don't use any camera. That's obviously applicable if you're trying to think about the kind of event you're doing, or whether it's going to be a more cinematic look or a bit more rough and ready. Backup equipment, that's as simple as like phone chargers or chargers for devices. When you're doing a DIY effort, it's mad how many times things don't happen just because simple things have been forgotten. Don't complicate your setup as well. There's a really good example of the organisation Shutterstock, who do like specialised photo and video stock content. You would obviously expect their live streams to be really high spec. They actually did a live stream exclusively with iPhones at Cannes Film Festival, just because that suited the feeling in the room. It was supposed to convey a bit of intimacy and the sort of busyness that was there, so that totally worked. So don't worry about if your budget would afford a really high spec live streaming setup. It's not always the best idea, so you don't need to go for the really high end kit. Sound quality is obviously really important for what we do, because a lot of people tune in because they want to hear the pipes. It's all about the music. You know, they might sacrifice slightly on audio, on video quality if it's live, as long as they can really hear what's being played. Now, inconsistency is just if you're maybe going to undertake like a series or something like that, if it's going to be in-house and you maybe want to do some like Q&As, if it's like a sport thing, would it maybe be, if there's anybody from like golf, you know, do you want to do a sit down, two-person chat? That would be a really good thing to do every week, a sort of about history or anything. You can really just create any sort of content. If there's an appetite for it, people will enjoy it. And don't expect your early ones to be perfect if you're doing them in-house. They never are, and you shouldn't be disheartened if there's one and it's like, oh my God, an absolute disaster, because it happens and you really learn from it, and at the end of the day, the content that you're creating, people will appreciate that you're making the effort to do it as well.
Yeah, a lot of the time your live audience can be quite understanding in terms of that, particularly if you're providing, you know, something very niche that they didn't think they could watch before. Rights is quite straightforward, just like with anything. You're broadcasting, you need to be quite careful. So with big events, you know, a lot of the time that can be part of the ticket buy-in process to let people know that they might be featured on the live stream if they're in the building or in the stadium or whatever it might be. And also like particularly sensitive around when you're using children, you know, under 18s, make sure that everyone sort of understands that they might be featured, or just be extra cautious around all that stuff. And obviously with music, you know, you've got your PRS and all these things.
They're a licensing website, so if you're looking to clear anything, make sure you go on there and just double check. We can give like a wee bit more information on the places you need to go for that if that is something that you're looking to do. Otherwise your content will just be taken down and you could have had like an amazing event and it doesn't mean anything because it's been taken off every platform and it's really hard to get it back up. Again, we've just been through all that sort of stuff, the importance of planning, testing as well, testing the kit before you go out. You always need to make sure that there's a 10-minute where you make sure your audio's matched up as well. But that's something that we would do anyway. I would also test your Facebook Lives as well if you're going to do it in like a closed group. Just do it to your friend or something. Just make sure that you feel comfortable with it, that you know it's going to be the right, if it's portrait or landscape, that it's going to work as well. Live production and post-production, we touched on that earlier on.
Yeah, I guess the only thing we've not really mentioned properly is utilising your archive post-event promotional content. Essentially, with something like live stream, once your live stream's over, you've then got an archived event, which is essentially on-demand content that you can then use to push out and put a strategy in place there as well. Yeah,
totally. Like that's the thing about once your live stream's complete, that's you've got a wealth of content that you can chop up, pick key themes out of, and have scheduled in for months. It's really indispensable in terms of like the breadth of content that you get and the different themes that can emerge as well. So single camera versus multi, we kind of touched on that as well. We've covered that, yeah. So single versus multi. Multi's your sort of highfalutin you want. We've maybe gone a wee bit OTT, I think, with our 3 cameras today, but it was just to show you, you know, what the setup can look like. Maybe for something like this, usually we might have like 2 cameras or something like that.
I mean, you could do something like this just with 1 camera, much more simplified setup. If like you say, it's just about the content more than the actual visual. Yeah, and making sure artistry. You're not sacrificing,
making sure that the budget's appropriate and that you're not sacrificing anything by going down a level. Of course, if you can go down a level and only have 1 camera, do it, but don't do it at the expense of somebody watching your content and thinking, well, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. Okay, so live programme making, that's what we do at the World and Glenfiddich as well. That's incorporating the stuff that we said we package up through the week, or in the case of Glenfiddich, it's packaged up actually live as well. We're sort of doing everything live. It's not just put into the stream, so it's crazy hectic. But again, loads of people with a shared interest in the same place that totally love what they do. So it would just be mad not to have it anyway.
I guess you've just got to be quite aware when you're getting into something like that. Again, it all takes a lot of preparation and planning. So something like, see here, a still of Fergus and Roddy talking live, sort of just outside the castle, mid-competition. That you can't just kind of do that ad hoc. We've got our wireless Terra Deck kit, so we can go out and kind of rove around with the camera and still be streaming quite consistently. Got sound men, and you know it takes quite a lot of preparation so that when you're in the moment, you can just catch someone and get the interview done. But again, I think a lot of what we're saying is about preparation.
Yes, it is, yeah. And then chat as well, that's something that's obviously not just available on live stream that we use, but Facebook Live and then Periscope if you were going to go for that as well. That's a really good way to check that your stream is, you know, working properly for a start. It's also a really good way to see what bits of content are really stand out for people, where people are engaging the most. You can also facilitate conversations in there as well, so use that opportunity to get a bit of positive PR, ask people what they're thinking about the stream, ask people what their favourite part of this is. You can get some really interesting stuff to do with marketing and get some audience insight just from sort of curating a conversation on that platform as well.
Any comments today, Finlay? No?
He's not, he's very busy.
No,
he's in mode.
Yeah.
So I'll just I'm conscious we're really tight for time, but I'll just really briefly touch on stats and monetisation of the platforms as well. So I love stats because they tell you so much about what you're doing. Are you doing it right? With this kind of stuff, it really tells you what platforms are working best for you. Big numbers don't necessarily mean anything, and that's the thing about data that can be sort of misconstrued as well. So for instance, this is from this year's Scottish Album of the Year Awards, and we broadcast that on 2 different platforms. We broadcast it on livestream.com, and livestream is somewhere that you would need to go as somebody who's engaged and seeking out the content, as opposed to Facebook Live where it's just going to pop up on your stream. And you can see, obviously live views wise, over 1,000 on live stream compared to, you know, nearly 12,000 on Facebook. At first glance, oh my God, Facebook Live's the best. But it's not. Like, look at the engagement levels, look at the minutes, 45 seconds watched average on Facebook versus 17 minutes on livestream.com. You need to think about where it's best to channel your efforts. So next year, would it be better for us to sort of set up something on live stream and think of ways to monetize that and get it sponsored? Arguably, I think yes. You know, that's not big numbers don't really mean a lot with live streaming because content is disseminated so widely on platforms like Facebook and Twitter. And then I'll just very quickly talk about this kind of stuff, which is how to monetize your stream. Pay-per-view, we kind of touched on that earlier with national theatre. That's if you've got an event that you know there's an appetite for, set your price point fairly and the audience will come. Subscriptions, we have got an example which is Brass Pass, which is sort of the equivalent to what we do with trad music, but to do with brass bands. They have got 5,000 subscribers so far, but they pay £10 a month for that content. So 50 grand a month for, you know, quite a low subscriber count already. But these people are so interested in what they're doing. It's quite remarkable what you can do just off people being engaged naturally.
I think what's important to keep in mind with both of those models is you have to have some kind of experience to like prove you've got that market and demand, however that may be. So like our experience was kind of, you know, well with the Cowal Highland Games, that's a very direct one. The first year it was available for free for the first time, not very heavily promoted, and we got lots of engagement and lots of views. And then the very next year that made the company, the organisers rather, confident enough to put up that pay-per-view wall because you know there's that real demand for it. But you kind of need to prove that first. You can't just go right into pay-per-view without any research.
And the likes of advertising, you know, you can do that within a platform. Arguably, I think it's maybe best to set up advertising with like offline. So make these connections. Look at the evidence from, you know, your first live stream. Where are your audience? The likes of Glenfiddich. Stateside, loads of people there love it. They like bagpipes. So why not approach somebody in the US who's got a bagpipe company who would already really struggle to find a way to market because it's such a niche thing? we've got a captive audience there that would be really engaged in their product, and geographically matches where they want their potential customers to be as well. Likes the sponsorships, again, that can work in a stream, a sort of back scratching thing. Like the Say Awards is sponsored by Harvest and Brewery. An idea that we're going to utilise next year is having a sort of Harvest and Brewery backstage interviews aspect. So then they have their name attached to that. They then get these packages of content to use as they want, you know, as part of their comms plan. They also have joint branding on the stream as well, and the Say Award or the Scottish Music Industry Association will, you know, have money from that. Traffic driving as well, just having a strap line on the bottom of the stream, directing you back to the website. As I said, 70,000 hits, 20,000 conversions, and onto the website. So you can think about that micro or macro, whatever you know you think your audience would like, but ultimately it does convert. It's just a little bit unpredictable. And then crowdfunding as well, that's sort of allowing people to, so if you create a crowdfunding campaign, you can basically sell your subscriptions, or you can sell pay-per-views as perks. So say it's something like Brass Pass where there's a real appetite for it, create a community. If you know the audience is there but they're just waiting to be brought together as well. And that's easy enough to do on crowdfunding platforms as well. Okay. Sorry, we totally rushed through that at the end there. We had more time. It felt like yesterday when we were rehearsing it. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed that and you feel like there's you feel empowered to go away, maybe try it a wee bit yourself. We've got kit with us, and after the panel discussion we can do a sort of run through of it as well. We've got the Mevo, we've got iPhones and the professional setup as well. Thank you.
Going to quickly set up for our panel session, but whilst we're doing that, there is an opportunity, don't disappear, because there's an opportunity just to ask some questions just while we set up for our panel session. And just one of the things that was coming out to me, and a lot of people have said before, is people are concerned that the live stream actually takes away from the people buying tickets to attend the audience or attend the event itself. And whether that, you know, I guess you've got to try and create two different products, it's two different experiences, I suppose. And then the people who are actually attending live have paid to be there. The people who are watching a live stream, particularly if you're doing a really good one and you're giving it away for free, are getting a better experience potentially, or they're getting all the insight, all the close-ups, all the one-to-ones, interviews. So I guess you just have to think that through. Would that, I mean, is that?
Yeah, definitely. It's not always going to be the beneficial thing to do, but I think when you prove that there's a real demand for people being in the building and there's a limited number of people that can actually be there and experience it. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like sitting in Blair Castle main hall with all the stags' heads around you and actually hearing the Pibroch there and then, you know, there isn't anything that will quite compare to that. So in that sense, you're kind of giving people this kind of rich overview of it and some reasons to tune in. But really at the end of the day, people are always going to want to be in that room as part of it. So I guess there would be other examples where it wouldn't be beneficial, where a lot of people can access. You're not selling out, so why stream and kind of bring down your ticket numbers, you know?
So is there any quick questions just now before we go into the panel session? We've got some interesting people in the room. We've got orienteering, we've got hockey, we've got Glasgow Film Festival, I think, is here, and we've got tattoo as well, and then lots of other people that I don't know so well. But anyway, so don't be shy, because it is meant to be quite an interactive session. But I'll tell you what, we'll just go into the panel session now. So we've got Malcolm Barclay here from Cowal Highland Games, or Highland Gathering, who's going to join us on the soft seats. We've got Paul Elliott from Scottish Hockey. Katie's going to jump in there as well, and we've got Stephen here from Glasgow Life too. So all of these guys are pretty experienced in terms of live streaming. We've heard a lot about Malcolm's Cowal Gathering, but I think the first thing to do, we'll just get the mics set up as well. Yeah, so it's one between two on the mic. So although these guys don't need to hear the mics, it's actually for the live stream. So you're not being amplified in the room. And when you speak into it, can you just sort of speak across the top of it, as it were? Hold it here, that was my instructions. So I think the first thing, we know plenty about Katie. We've just been hearing from her, and thank you very much for your insight and sharing all of that for us. But Stephen, do you want to just give us a little bit of background about what your involvement is with live streaming? That would be great.
It's actually the main involvement in Glasgow Life over the last few years has been with Inner Ear and working on the World Highland Dancing Championships. I've been with the company now for 3 years. At the back, I think 4 years we might have been doing it. At the beginning, in its infancy, it was a kind of one-camera setup. And I think that the audience that we see come out of that, and again, I'm not sure that it was even live streamed at the viewers back in its infancy, but that would help. The very beginning, we seen that there was a huge appetite for the audience, and when I came along, Dougal and the team came on board, and when we identified the metrics from the first time we'd done it, it was clear that we needed to make more of a production around it and more of a show around it, and that's when we really kind of upscaled the content on the day. So we went from live content to the BBC feed, which is invaluable, to content from Fergus, the Piping Live activity. But moreover than that, for us, we have to, our audience out there is the audience, the worldwide audience, and when we talk about monetising these streams, we can't necessarily do that because we're Glasgow Live, part of a kind of council. But what we want to do is entice people to Glasgow. So the content that we can insert into that is akin to some of the Celtic Connections events and things that we've got, and actually trying to entice people worldwide to come to Glasgow, because when we look at the metrics from the stream after each stream, we're seeing more and more traffic from Australia, Canada and America right round. So great. That's one of the things that we do. Great.
So World Pipe Band Champs, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So we've got Paul Elliott, who's the communications manager for Scottish Hockey, who do a lot of live streaming as well. So a bit of sport this time.
Yeah, we do quite a lot of live streaming. We've done a fair bit over the last few years, mostly around international tournaments. It's been a part of Scottish Hockey's strategy to make Scotland a home for hockey, and Scotland is a home for sport more widely, and Glasgow obviously from the back of Commonwealth Games. So we've tried to attract a lot of international tournaments to Glasgow, and a big part of that has been live streaming, and kind of using that as I suppose a growth opportunity for the sport in Scotland. I kind of figure that if I'm going to grow the sport and to show the sport, so live streaming gives me a good chance to do that to a very large audience, and I was surprised by how large the audience actually was when we started live streaming.
That's great.
So then we did the domestic tournaments after that as well, which has been successful too, so just grown from there.
Great, and then we'll just hand across to Malcolm there. So we've heard a lot about Cowal Highland Games, and I've been a few times and I enjoy it very much. But why did you start live streaming in the first place? Where did that come from? Whose idea was that?
Really, the Cowal Gathering, we host the World Highland Dancing Championships. So we have dancers coming from all over the world, and there's huge kind of dancing, Highland dancing interest from Canada, America, New Zealand, places like that. And we were getting 700 competitors there, but we knew there was thousands others out there who knew of the event but might not be able to come to the event and take part. So what we wanted to do was give them the opportunity to see it actually as it happened, see it live, and go through that journey, and hopefully in the future entice them to come to the event. So we've done it, I think, 3 times, where in-house kind of to varying success with iPhones and hooking up to the local broadband and things. None of them really worked perfectly. There was always issues. The last twice we've brought in and worked with Inner Ear, and they have been the brilliant, the kind of the views and that we've been getting were amazing. The first year that Inner Ear did it, we had 24,500 unique views over the weekend. It's obviously, as they're touched on, cost. It's not necessarily cheap to do. So this year we decided to try and monetize it, and that's something that people need to be careful of. We were warned it would impact significantly. We thought it's a unique group of people that we're aiming for. The demand will still be there. It decimated the people who came through. We had 750 people paid to view from 24,500 the year before. And that was it. We set it at £7 for the 3 days. It wasn't even a huge amount of money. So I've had varying kind of different experiences with it. But it's a great way of getting the brand out and kind of raising awareness of the event and bringing people along.
And down in Dunoon, I think Benny was saying perhaps, did they have to bring in the internet, the broadband connection for you, just to stabilise all of that?
Yeah, they did the magic stuff that Kate was talking about earlier, where they kind of pluck it out of the air and turn 3G and 4G signals into various internet. So which all adds to the cost, but it was fantastic. The previous years we had issues with broadband, we had issues with 3G signals because the number of people that were there on the day. Inner Ear came in with all the magic equipment, and it was pretty much flawless for the 3 days.
So if you, I guess using the Wi-Fi and all that, particularly on a massive event where other people would be using their phones and all the rest of it, you kind of really needed a secure source if you're going to, particularly if you're going to sell the product, sell the live stream as well. You need to be able to deliver. What does Highland World Pipe Band Champs do about broadband?
Fortunately, we can plug directly in there, but I know that you guys also do use some of your roaming kits. I don't know what you're using there, but that transmits back to, we're just based in a little cabin.
Yeah, pretty much. We're sort of wired in there. We're lucky because thank you. We're lucky because the BBC are there as well, and everything's sort of ready there for us to use. Already, and that's obviously amazing for us. We, in terms of like the internet connection, it works by sort of like plucking the stuff out of the air. It doesn't really get affected. Well, it's really affected by how many other people are using it.
Is that an exclusive feed that you've got?
No, it's strange. So it's like pulling data from like other people's connections to create a broadband on its own.
Right. Okay.
It's highly technical and it's not cheap either, like you said.
Great. We'll come on and we'll talk about cost in a few moments as well. Paul, for you, for the hockey, you do that on Glasgow Green at the National Centre. So have you got all that wired into the site to enable all of that?
Yeah. We just used we're in a building, so we just use an uncontested line in the building, and it's it works for us. It doesn't get any trouble from people on their phones or anything like that. So we're quite lucky to be in a good facility where we can just operate.
And does the audience? Sorry, I keep coming up with questions before you've answered the last one. But does the audience? Are they expecting that now? Are they, if you're going to host a major event or for the World Pipe Band Champs or something, is there an expectation you need to be able to provide a live stream because the audience, the world has moved on, and if, people just expect to be able to access something like that? Yeah,
I would say there definitely is, and especially us because we've done it so often, and we've done it pretty well, I would say as well. So I think there is an expectation that I think people would be surprised if we didn't do it, which is probably a pretty good place to be in as well. I think we would have to come out and say we're not streaming if we weren't going to do it. So that's kind of where we are. So there is an expectation now on you as an event producer to provide a standard of broadcast to enable the audience around the world to be able to participate. But we also want that of ourselves as well. We wouldn't want to go at a lower standard. We want to portray the sport in the best possible way, and so we have a minimum standard for our live streaming. And Malcolm, you and I used to, back in a long time ago, talk about we're chasing the traditional media broadcasters, trying to get some coverage in our respective fields. We sometimes successful, sometimes not. But it just seems a lot easier now, actually just creating your own, let's just do it ourselves, as long as there's a budget implication. But if you know the audience is there, we don't need the traditional media necessarily. We can just we can create our own TV shows. And then, so was that part of the motivation for you guys as well, just fed up chasing? Yeah, we couldn't get the likes of the BBC and STV to come down to Dunoon for the 3 days. So it was if we were going to get and be able to provide the footage and that, we had to generate it ourselves and deal with it ourselves. That's what we had to do. I mean, we're now in a tricky situation because
having had a fantastic kind of live feed for the last 2 years, we're in a situation where there's an expectation next year that there will be a live feed. Because it didn't sell the way we hoped it would do, and it didn't pay for itself, we don't know whether there will be. So we're currently looking at how we address that, and it's looking at other ways of monetising it, or sponsorship and things, and maybe just tweaking the setup as well, and maybe offering it slightly differently, or part of a bigger package.
Have you thought of doing a crowdfunding approach to that? Have you ever considered it?
It's actually something that's just been talked about over the last couple of weeks. It's something that we've spoken about.
But with World Pipe Band Championships, you're butting up alongside a traditional broadcaster who have bought a set of rights to an event, and I guess don't own the online broadcast or something like that. How does that? How do you manage to just work alongside?
They do own the broadcast, but it's exclusively for the Saturday.
Ah, right. Okay.
And we get access to some clips for it.
Yeah.
So on the Saturday, we've already got the Friday's stream and the heats. That's already sort of banked, and it's on live stream to review. And we do see that the numbers just tick up right through the next following weeks, actually. But on Saturday, we're just given one little piece of content, and that's the winners. So that's the only thing we get to put out from the BBC. So I think there's a relationship's been forged there where we're making use, as Katie said before, of all that footage that's not being used elsewhere, apart from on the big screens.
Yeah.
And then we're getting access to...
Is the only bit that they broadcast live the announcement?
No, on the Saturday, they do a lot of broadcasting from it live.
Right, okay.
As you said, it's mainly it's a kind of run through on Friday, although it is the heats and everything's been filmed. Up until us plugging into that stream, it was just getting broadcast on a screen like that, or multiple screens like that across the site. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of content there that's not being utilised, whether it's the Friday or just not the grade ones, the grade twos, or there's plenty more out there. There's plenty more demand, perhaps, because there's so much going on at an event like that. If you have a question, just put your hand up and interrupt me. But the only thing is, because there's not a roving mic out there, I just need to repeat your question. So, Paul, there's an expectation on you guys to provide a live stream. How then do you go through the analytics like Katie was talking about? How do you know who that audience is? Are you able to capture that audience? Even if they're not paying to view, can you put them through a data capture process so that at least you have them on a database or something like that?
I'm also an analytics geek, so I study the analytics every time we stream and try and map out the journeys. I'm quite big about customer journeys and trying to how do I get somebody from live stream to joining a hockey club, or how do I get somebody from live stream to being an umpire or a volunteer or buying a ticket for another event. So I track that and try and map it out, and now we're probably in a position where I feel like we're quite strong that I can plan ahead and kind of guide that a little bit better than we have in the past. And we're looking to try and live stream next year and build those journeys and really make them strong, so that we can achieve some objectives that we set for ourselves before we live stream. So live streaming for me is partly very good top of the funnel content and marketing speak, and that's analytics led.
And so if we go into the setup, let's say it's for a hockey match, I guess it's a multi-camera, various cameras round the pit, round the field, or behind the goal. And have you got commentary going over the top of that as well? It's just like a TV show or a TV broadcast.
Yeah, I think commentary for us is very, very important, because I've seen hockey streams elsewhere where the footage has been really good, but the commentary has been really bad, and it shows. You can tell, and vice versa. Maybe the stream hasn't been the greatest, but the commentators really brought it to life and told the story really well. At a minimum level, we'll have a good camera in the stand vantage point that gets the main game, and we'll have 2 stationary cameras in the goals, so it gives you 3 angles to play with. And if we scale up, we'll go for a tight angle and a wide angle in the stand, and then maybe a roving camera, somebody walking around the stand and getting the fans and that kind of interaction.
So it's quite a big setup.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, so and you've got people at the back like we do today doing the vision mixing, and you've got a commentary team talking over it as well. Have you had it go down at all? Mid-final or anything like that?
Yes. Yeah. We had to be 5 minutes. Luckily it was only just 5 minutes and we survived, but panic stations.
So what Katie said, it is going to happen at some point, so I guess you just plan for that too.
Yeah. It doesn't happen very often, no.
Yeah. And what's the setup, Malcolm, down in Cowal? How does it work down there? Bad time, sorry.
Yeah. This year we had static cameras on the dancing platforms.
Right.
We've kind of discovered over the years it's the dancing that people are wanting to watch. Last year we had we only used the one platform, then we had a roving camera out watching the heavy athletics and the pipe bands and things, which although that wasn't broadcast live, it allowed us to get a lot of footage and that we could use in promotional clips, YouTube clips and that kind of thing. But yeah, we...
and have you got commentary going over the top as well, or an introducer or anything?
No, we would get shot if we had commentary over the top. They want to be able to watch the dancers' feet and make sure they're in time with the piper playing in the background.
All right, okay.
So we couldn't have commentary. But we do have, they will put bits of information, kind of graphics up as well, what the dance is or which group it is, what age group it is, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
So it's probably a wee bit more straightforward. But we also have a little house with the guys hiding away as well with all their equipment and things in it as well.
And what about World Pipe Band Champ, Steve? What's the package there? You've got how are you? What's your?
Essentially, when we consider there's actually multiple things that we do, because when we've started in the last 2 years, so on the actual event location, we're based basically in the media village, so alongside the BBC. We're right next to where the line comes in the door, essentially. And within distance of the arena, whereby any of the remote cameras that are out can broadcast directly back. So that's quite a technical setup on behalf of the Inner Ears guys. But what we also do is one of my colleagues and yourself, I think this year, go out, and so that's exclusively done on live stream, which we then take and embed onto our website. We find that we get a lot of traffic on our website, but we get a lot of traffic on live stream as well, and the conversation happens on both. But for an event called Beat the Retreat, which is essentially a procession through the whole of Glasgow, a lot of people will be familiar with it. We now do that on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
So that one's, the last 2 years we've done that, and we've used is it the Mevo?
It's the Mevo, yeah. So again, that's like, that example there is a really good one of how you can have really high-end content and it marries really well with something a bit more DIY. Beat the Retreat is a procession that goes down from the Blythswood Hotel all the way down to George Square, and we are basically, like, Frankie is like the star of the show. I'm just following her with the iPad, but she keeps the camera steady and just guides, make sure she's getting really good audience shots. It's quite sugary. It's, it's a bit temperamental, but it's just you're really in the throng of everybody, and that's what matters. That's what that audience are there to see, and they're all delighted to see it anyway. That's never going to be something super high end, because you've just not got the capacity unless it's like a TV broadcast. But that content sits really, really nicely alongside the sort of packages of stuff that we do with Piping Live and the stream as well. So it doesn't matter if your event can be multifaceted in terms of what you can deliver. You can have behind the scenes stuff that is totally DIY and maybe prone to having a wee cut out here and there. That's all right. Your audience have got a different expectation of what that content's going to be because it's on Facebook Live.
So we've got 10 minutes left, I think, and I've asked all the questions so far, but I've got another one yet. So when it comes to money, I've got £1,000, I've got £1,000. What can I do for £1,000? Is that just a one camera, pretty low res, not brilliant?
Do you know, I might actually speak to either Benny or Finlay about that one. I think they might be more qualified to talk about what.
It's always adapted in terms of what the
Yeah.
are. I mean, you can go to the Inner Ear website if you want to see like a really kind of vague overview of like what we do for certain amounts, and I think £1,000 is actually what.
I'm not asking you to quote here.
It's so hard. But it's so hard to cost, isn't it? Yeah.
But it is. I'm just sort of anticipating for the shows that you guys are putting on, which sound pretty high end, and I would sit at home and watch it on my TV, sort of thing, rather than just watch it quickly on a wee, on my phone. I'm thinking that's £10,000 more than that. Okay, right, yeah. Yeah, okay, so it's pretty top end. So you need a significant budget for this. So we're adding a significant budget to our event budget, but we've got no way really, I mean, which is great because it's extending the audience and all that kind of stuff, but how are we going to pay for that? And if it's getting sponsored, then brilliant, or if we can get it crowdfunded or monetized, subscribed, then brilliant. But if you're giving away the content for free, I guess, of course, you're going to get lots of views. But why would I not view that then if I had any interest at all? But if you've got a really niche product, which a lot of these are, I'm guessing you've got a committed audience who just can't be there. They would be paying to be in the room if they could be, but they're looking for a quality experience, but they may pay less to get the live broadcast. And I guess, I don't know how we make that work, whether our respective products are ready for that or the audiences are ready for that. I don't know. What do you think, Katie?
I don't think anything can really match an experience that's in the room. I think live streaming does an awfully good job, and we really try to emulate the atmosphere in the room by being conscious of the mediums that we're capturing through and how we're vision mixing it and how we're putting it out. However, it's never like, for me personally, whenever I'm watching a live stream, say if there was one this year and it was Burning Man Festival in the Nevada desert and it was mental, and I was like, I want to go there. Like that, I would love to go there next year. The point in the live stream is to get you a bit of a return on investment. It's to get bums on seats in the place, and if you're doing it effectively like we are at the Glenfiddich, people do come. It is supposed to be a mark. It's not so. The nature of anybody is to have a shared experience. Like we enjoy that. We enjoy interacting with people that have got a common interest. So why wouldn't it pique your interest to be chatting to these people on the live stream? Why wouldn't you maybe think to all meet up? If one of you lives in New Zealand, Australia, Japan, that it's a great way to actually physically bring people together as well, and it does definitely happen. We've got proof of it.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to be quiet. Who's got questions? Someone give us a question. James, are the mod going to be doing any live streaming?
Yeah, well...
Hang on, I probably need to give you
sure.
a mic. Hold on a wee sec. So James is from the mod. Get a good broadcast with BBC already?
Yeah, so we're an 8-day event, very multifaceted, and we're lucky to have the BBC broadcast, telly and radio just now. The downside to that is that they prioritise the events that they broadcast, so it's usually major finals. Out with the major finals, we've got up to 200 other competitions. We've got an overarching fringe element, maybe 60, 70 events sometimes over that 8 days, and none of that's been captured. And that's the kind of interest that we have in live streaming. Again, just you were talking about our audience is ready for it. We've probably got an older audience, more older than young anyway, although the young are coming through now. And again, it'd be pretty... I'm not sure how the audience would take to that, especially if there are subscriptions and pay-per-views and stuff like that, when they're getting, I suppose, the main stuff on the BBC. But it's certainly something we want to do.
Great. And Clara, the tattoo, so if you don't mind, can I just ask you a couple? So there's an event that has a broadcast deal, sold out every night during the festival. How do you grow the event? There's no more seats you can fit on the stand. So
yes, so I think that's part of our challenge, is how we develop and go forward. So an event that's 70 years old in 2020. But yeah, when you sell out, so we do 25 nights, so that's nearly 250,000 people live. And then there's still a lot of people that are trying to engage with it. But I came here today just to sort of explore what you do and about the pay-per-view, if people are paying for an experience. And certainly, I don't think it does take away from the authenticity of going to the event. And certainly people travel all around the world to just a sort of bucket list item for some people. But I do have an issue if somebody's paid, upwards of between £25 to £300 a ticket. Not on third-party ticketing. Yeah. Okay.
That's another workshop.
That's a whole other chat. But then to try and say what you do about the live streaming, is luckily, we are on the BBC. We have a full outside broadcast team come in for 3 days, and the rights are with them at the moment. You know, we do produce a DVD as well, which is popular, and trying to think about live streaming in a way that it can add an additionality. I think you're right. I think people want to see more. We do a lot of kind of hustle and bustle. We have film crews that go around and we create our own sort of 3-minute Facebook videos just to give people a little bit more of an insight. People want to know what the performers are doing behind the stage.
Like
just
teasers.
a little bit more personal. They're getting, you know, not quite into the dancers' changing rooms, but you are getting, you know, to see what it feels like to be in and amongst the wing areas, to be inside the castle, to watch, you know, 300 pipers warm up inside Edinburgh Castle. It's something they don't get the chance to see. So you're trying to provide an insight into a little bit more of the intimacy of the event.
Yeah.
I also think there's a lot to offer just in general terms of screening onto screens. You're getting the emotive, you know, if you could see the lone piper's face rather than just a speck, what would it give you in terms of emotion connection to the event? But live streaming of an event that somebody's paid a ticket for, I think it'd either have to be along the lines of trying to get people to hook in to come. I think whether it's a taster, whether you say it's like a sneak preview like the National Galleries event. But we also go into cinemas, similar to National Theatre Live. We use the BBC footage. We go into Canada, America, New Zealand, Australia. You know, these are things people are now going. There's pipe bands outside the cinema. They're going in to watch the tattoo in the cinema collectively.
Is that a live feed or is that recorded?
It's not live. We don't do a live feed.
Yeah.
It's all recorded. So the BBC is edited and cut down and obviously mixed.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different versions. There's a 59-minute version on BBC One.
Yeah.
And then there's a longer version on BBC Alba. So if you actually want to see the whole thing, watch it on BBC Alba with the subtitles because you get the whole thing rather than the highlights.
You don't need the subtitles, James, do you? You don't need the subtitles, do you?
But I suppose my questions might be what you think your advice is in terms of having a successful large live event versus, you know, live streaming cost. I was interested to hear about certainly the Cowal Games there and how you can get sort of fans, if you like, to crowdfund. I was thinking there, just off the top of my head, if every dance school around the world that was interested paid £1 and, you know, did an event where they all sat round and, you know, every little dance class in Canada, for instance, got, you know, sat round and watched it, it might only cost them all £1, but you'd need a lot of people.
That was part of the reason that we ended up with 750, because a lot of the dance classes did get together and all
and
one
person
and
paid.
had a big party kind of thing. But yeah, no, definitely. I mean, these are things that we're looking at now. You know, we had hoped, because the pure numbers and or the original pure numbers, we had hoped that if we got the price point right, that we would be able to self-sustain it. But now we're discussing things like crowdfunding and discussing potential deals with sponsors and that kind of thing as well to kind of cover the costs, because it just wasn't. What we'd rather do is give it away free again if we can. Because that's what the expectation is, and that's what people clearly are looking for.
A question that's just about if you do have a broadcast rights, so you're talking about there not just the PRS and things to go up on screen, but I was interested in the link between the BBC covering on the Saturday and then you're getting their footage on the Friday, which sounds like a great deal to me, to be honest. But I'm wondering how you could cut into something that's actually already covered and tied into.
Well, the thing is, on the Friday, the BBC don't broadcast any of that footage on the Friday. They basically just treat that as a dry run for the Saturday. So they've got all their camera ops there, just basically going through the motions, and it's not, we are technically not, they've chosen for some reason not to capitalise on that yet, which baffles me because, you know, arguably that's a bigger audience.
Yeah, don't tell me stats.
No, I won't. No, but you know, it's a really healthy number that tune in and that are engaged as well, and for whatever reason, that's an open playing field for us at the moment. So we have quite a healthy working relationship with the BBC in Scotland as well, because, you know, we're all in the same boat. We all want people to have you know, access to great content, is free if it can be, you know. The actual streaming aspect of it is, you know, completely packaged up by the Friday. So on the Saturday they come in and it's as if we've never been there. There's not really any sort of cross wire with what they're doing on the Saturday at all.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Clara, so the BBC are they I mean, we need to be careful what we say in this environment, but if they've bought all the broadcast rights, but they're not, but including live broadcast, but they're not utilising those rights, then you could take them, yeah, you could take that back potentially, or you could repackage your rights and sell them somewhere else. You could find that someone else would come in and take your live stream, do it for you. Facebook might do it for you. Yeah. Who knows? But just two other things that I wanted to point out. So you've made the point that you get the DVD. So you've got all this content, and if you recorded it, you can repackage that and create a souvenir DVD that you could, that's merchandise ultimately. But the other thing for me, and in my past life, it was people are sitting at home watching the broadcast on, if it's a good quality broadcast, are getting the close-ups and getting the slow-mos and all that, the goals, replays and everything, just like you're saying, the Piper. It is an expense, but it's not a difficult thing to just plug that into a big screen and give the audience in the stadium, or you've got the content there, so it's an easy feed into a big screen at that point, which gives the people in the live scene all the benefits that the people at home are getting too, as well as being in the live scene. It needs to be done well, obviously, but
absolutely, yeah. With the likes of the Pipe and Live segments that we've got, they could be sort of like, they're just broadcast on our stream, but you could, if you wanted to create a programme to be streamed out live, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have that on big screens as well, and then your audience that are there, that have paid the money to be there, are definitely not missing out on anything.
Added value.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have to stop it there. Thank you very much, panellists. A wee round of applause for our panellists. Thank you very much. That was not too painful, hopefully. We're going to have a little break for coffee and all that just now, and then we've just got some kit laid out at the back, and all the techies are ready to chat. So you can just take a look at what goes on and get an idea, perhaps, around some of the budget stuff as well, because, let's not underestimate the cost of doing this sort of thing. It's a significant addition, but it's a significant addition to the event as well.
But we can tell you about, why it costs what it costs. We are really transparent about how much things cost. So the kit that we've got is tens of thousands of pounds, and it's rates for people that are educated in what they're doing as well. So we promise it's all above board and it all makes sense.
We should say other streaming companies are available.
We are, yeah.
All right, so we'll get a coffee, and that's us for just now. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.